And please welcome my very special guest. Good afternoon, Stephen Merchant.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Can I be referred to as a friend of the show? Have I achieved that by being... I think this is the third time, is it? We've been on? Second or third time?
Yeah, twice.
How many times have I got to be on before I can be a friend of the show? Okay, all right.
3 times.
Well, okay, I'm pushing my luck here. Sorry.
Well, we've actually got Ricky and Carl on tomorrow.
Right.
And he is a certified friend of the show.
Okay.
Pest of the show.
Sure.
I think it's his 6th appearance tomorrow.
Oh, I see. That makes sense then. What am I then? I'm sort of... I'm someone you met at a party of the show.
Oh, it's like we're at second base.
Okay, all right. Wow, I didn't realise it was that intimate with Ricky.
Is that all right?
Yeah. Okay, sure.
We're at second base.
Okay, good.
Thank you for popping in today.
Thanks.
Your tour schedule is insane. When this got announced a few months ago, I saw it in the paper, and I saw a big picture of you.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my god, he's going on a massive tour. And I looked at the dates and went, 50 odd? 50
Yeah, this
odd
is
dates.
a stand-up comedy tour, I should make clear. I'm not just touring around the UK.
With a band.
You know, well, just on my own. You know, having a little trip. Yes, I know, it's too many dates. I've already realised.
Do you regret it
I'm
already?
2 weeks in, I'm already hating it. It's mental. I thought it was going to be like an hour a night of work, and then I had the rest of the day off to play golf and do stuff like, you know, the old entertainers, Bruce Forsyth and that. It's a nightmare. Well, first you got to come on shows like this and mention it.
Oh.
No, of course, I'm pleasure to be here. I'm a friend of the show.
Pleasure to be here.
And I'm travelling around, and you know, from this week it's going to be staying in hotels up and down the country and stuff, and it's too much effort. I don't know what I was thinking. I'll tell you this: if you don't come to this, I'm not doing it again. So if you're even any inkling of coming to see the show, you have to this time, because I can't imagine doing it again.
You're doing 5 nights. Is it 5 or 6 nights at Hammersmith Apollo?
Well, if that's what they're saying, but I don't know. I mean, if they're shifting, I don't know if there's tickets are shifting. I have no idea. I haven't looked into it. Yeah, it's no. I mean, I always give 110% on the night.
Unless
I don't want people thinking that.
Unless you're up north.
No. Absolutely, always. That's the thing. I do think people have come out, and I am always amazed that people have come out. They've got so many things they could do. They could stay in. They could listen to Radio 1. They could watch telly. You know, they could go on the internet. There's so many things they could do, but they choose to come out. So I do, and I come off sweating. I've got a sort of Lee Evans-y level of sweat going on. I do a lot of physical comedy, which you wouldn't perhaps expect. So I do put the effort in. I don't want people to think they're going to be shortchanged.
I don't think they would expect that, would they? To sit down and go, I'm going to be shortchanged here. But it must be going well. I mean, you've done, not just suddenly gone, I'm going to do some stand-up. You've done it for many years, haven't you?
Yeah, this is the weird thing. It's strange, actually, because people don't know me as a stand-up comedian. They know me either from the podcast or the stuff with Ricky and Carl, or from as a writer on The Office and stuff. And yet, weirdly, I used to do stand-up years ago. It was the first thing I ever did. I did that long before I met Ricky, long before I was on TV. And I sort of was quite good at it. I was all right. I was mediocre, let's be honest. But then just somewhere along the line, I just thought, I can't be doing this. It's too hard. It's too much hard work. It's just exhausting. And then I sort of forgot that, and I gave it up. And then I sort of forgot how much hard work it was, and sort of started dabbling with it again. And that's what's led me to this tour. I've sort of. It's a bit like you know, like an ex-girlfriend. There was still a little bit of magic there. There was unfinished business. We went out for a coffee. Before we knew it, we were back in the sack.
That's it.
That's where we're at, really.
Well, that's fair enough, and that's a great way to do a 57-date tour of the UK and Ireland.
Yeah.
Good. But the first few dates have happened already in Guildford and Sheffield and a few other places. They've gone well.
They've gone all right. So
nice
far, people seem to laugh. There's clapping at the end, which is all you can hope for. And I should say the audiences have been amazing. I've really enjoyed that. I was amazed, and places, you know, you wouldn't think there was even people who knew I was coming out and sort of enjoying it. And that's the thing. I do enjoy the performance side of it. It's just the travelling and the you know, and sort of worrying about it, anxiety for a couple of hours beforehand. You know, it's a weird way to make a living, isn't it? Really, it's strange, isn't it? The impulse to stand on stage.
Absolutely, but it's working because Ben Mundy from Newsbeat went and saw you in Canterbury.
I'm excited to hear Mundy's opinion, because I know that is highly regarded here at One.
And he said it was bloody excellent.
He swore?
Yeah, he loved it.
Wow. I'd say that means a lot coming from Monday.
He really loved it.
Oh, well, that's very sweet. That's very sweet. I have been surprised, actually, at how many people have been complimentary. And I've also... It's just interesting that a lot of people seem to have been surprised by the show. Like, they've been surprised at how physical it is. I guess people don't know.
Oh my God, what do you do? It's like a circus act.
I know, it sounds awful, doesn't it? It sounds like I'm just dancing around like a monkey for your applause, which is essentially what I am doing. No, it's just because when you're 6'7" and you're sort of a bit awkward and a bit gangly, it just seems weird not to use that as part of the act. Do you know what I mean? So I do basically dance around like a fool.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more about a load of other stuff in a second. And my special guest today is Stephen Merchant. We were just talking about the fact that you actually started, well, a bit of your early career was at Radio 1.
It was at Radio 1, actually, yes. I was on this trainee scheme at the BBC and used to get assigned to different projects. And one of them, I came to Radio 1 and I had a desk for a little while upstairs. And I used to sort of be involved making... do you still do them? Kind of, they were like sort of campaign films. It would be or sort of documentary type things about, you know, be careful when you're taking drugs.
Yeah.
Or
sex advice, drugs are bad.
Or are you starting in college?
Yeah.
Then this is how you find a house.
Exam help.
Stuff like that. Exam help. And so I did that on and off, and I sort of had to interview students, and I interviewed some drug addicts up in the north who'd never heard of Radio 1, which I thought was extraordinary. There are people out there that you're yet to reach.
I know.
And
scary, isn't it?
And yeah, it was interesting. And for a while, I popped up a couple of times on Sarah Cox's radio show when she did the breakfast show, and I went down to Glastonbury.
Were you on air?
Coxie. Yeah, I was sort of had this kind of role where I was like the sort of work experience guy. I think I was only on about 2 shows. I think they got bored of me very quickly.
Oh, that's a shame.
And but yeah, she took me to Glastonbury. I remember we did something down there, and yeah, I had a great time. Yeah, it was exciting.
And then obviously the big thing for you was a huge part of your life, The Office, obviously.
Right.
And one of my favourite things of all time. It's such a huge thing, and 10 years old.
I know, it's bad,
this year, isn't it?
How old were you then when you watched it?
I was 15.
Oh, that's pathetic.
No, but I was at school. It was the thing to talk about at school.
Oh, it sickens me. It disgusts me.
You'd go into school the next day and you'd do David Brent impressions, or you'd talk about the Og Monster.
Wow,
and
really?
things like that.
That seems so strange to me. Yes, that was obviously an important part of my life, The Office. Thanks for asking. 10 years, you're right. That came out of that BBC thing as well, because I had to do a little training film, and I said to Ricky, who I'd worked with, should we do something involving that character? That he sort of had this character of David Brent floating around, and we did something with BBC Finances, and off we went, really, yeah. I gotta hand it to the BBC. Gotta hand it to them.
And are you a fan of The American Office? I've got to ask.
Love it, because of the checks.
Yeah, because you're still the executive producer.
Still getting the checks, that cash is still coming through.
And you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking so good today. You can see. That's why the sleeves of this jacket don't quite fit. You'll notice, yeah. This money's no object.
But how does it work? Do you watch any of them and go, yeah, that's fine?
I watch it as a fan.
Yeah.
It's like we did our version of the show and then someone else remade it. It's like you won a competition where some amazing American people made a show to your specifications. And I love it, yeah. I love seeing the episodes when they come through. I've directed a couple and you know, worked with Carell and the whole gang and stuff. It's brilliant. There's something about American TV that really hypnotised me when I was a kid. I was a massive fan of great American sitcoms, and so to sort of be involved with them in some way is a real thrill.
Because the first series of The American Office was quite similar to your first series, and then they completely changed it. It's like a completely different show now. So
well, the only credit I think Ricky and I can take is the one thing we said was you mustn't be beholden to ours. You've got to take it in your own direction, and that's one of the reasons we weren't involved at the Coalfix, because we just thought we're just going to try and replicate ours too much. And once they took it off in their own direction, they've just gone somewhere different from it. I love it. I'm really proud of it.
So Office. Obviously, Extra's a huge success, and the new one, Life's Too Short, as well, which I came down to have a look at. And I saw a bit of a scene with Warwick Davis in a restaurant. And it seems like it's going to be an amazing show, this new one.
It's interesting, isn't it? You know, it's sort of that slightly... It's a bit like before you go on stage, you know, with stand-up. You're just slightly anxious. You know, how are people going to take it? Are they going to get with it? Are they going to enjoy it? Warwick is fantastic. You know, he's people know him from, you know, he's in Harry Potter. He was in Return of the Jedi. And, yeah, he sort of plays a kind of, a sort of mean-spirited version of himself. And he encounters me and Ricky. He encounters Johnny Depp is in an episode. We got Liam Neeson in one. And I think it's really funny. I think it's one of the funniest things we've done. And Warwick is fantastic, absolutely magnificent.
I mean, you say those names quite flippantly, but to get Johnny Depp and Liam Neeson in a show is huge news, isn't it?
That's the sort of dudes I'm hanging out with, Greg. You know, if you can't hack it, you know, that's just the sort of guys that I'm chilling with. What can I say?
Are you going to get Carell in one of them?
Carell is in it.
He's in one of them.
In the new series, yeah. Steve Carell's in the show. Sting pops up.
Sting?
Yeah, Sting is in it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a series. I mean, you know, there's a dwarf in the lead. Sting pops up. How are you not watching that, people?
And was it due to be on October time?
I think it's later than maybe November.
Okay. There's so much stuff going on with you. Idiot Abroad. We'll talk about that with Ricky and Carl tomorrow. But that starts tomorrow night as well.
That starts
second series of that.
That starts Friday.
Huge success.
Huge. The first series was a triumph, actually. We were amazed by how popular it was. People just took to it so much. And I think it's just all down to Carl. What can you say? You know, he's unique. You know, you've met him.
Yeah.
And you can honestly say he is the same off TV as he is on, isn't he? He's exactly the same person if you meet him when he comes in tomorrow.
Well, because I know someone who used to work with him at a radio station in London. He used to do all the sort of editing and stuff. And they said, well, I knew him before he was even on with you and Ricky, and he said he was exactly the same then. He was sort of grumpy about everything.
Yeah.
He just hated everyone and had these amazing sort of thoughts on life, and he hasn't changed a bit.
The only difference is now he's grumpy and hates, you know, people all over the world.
And has got a bit more cash.
Exactly. The new series is, the first one, obviously, he went round seeing the 7 wonders of the world. This time, it's things to do before you die. You know, they call it the bucket list you're supposed to do. And so, for instance, he got to choose. He chose, you know, swimming with dolphins. But obviously, you know, Ricky and I have been a bit mischievous, so when he got there, he was actually swimming with sharks. But aside from that, you know, it's business as usual, him travelling around, him whinging. So what's interesting is sort of his reaction to things you wouldn't expect. So he reacts when he gets meets some ladyboys in Bangkok, for instance. He does not have the reaction you'd think. He seems to take to them greatly. They dress him up. He seems to embrace it wholeheartedly. It's really funny.
We'll talk about that with Ricky and Carl tomorrow, because they're on tomorrow's show. Just one final thing before I let you go. I mean, obviously you're a bit of a radio man yourself.
Yeah.
Having done stuff on Six Music and obviously the other station in London that I like to talk about, where it all started for you, Ricky and Carl. Yeah. Do you miss it a little bit, the radio stuff? I did the podcast,
like radio. I like radio. I like the immediacy of it. You know, like, I know full well that you've come in today about 2 minutes before you went on air. You've not really thought about what you're going to do. Your team have put everything together.
You've heard the show,
You've staggered in. You've been probably in Stringfellows last night. You're bleary-eyed. You're a little hungover. But you know full well that you know, you can talk garbage, and people aren't really listening to what you're saying. They're listening for the music, aren't they? Let's be honest. Yeah. So no one's really paying attention to this conversation now. So I could insult you, I could swear, I could go berserk. No one cares. And that's what I like about radio, you know, whereas with the stand-up show, I've really worked at that. I've really tried to make that really good. The TV stuff takes a lot of effort. Turning up on the wireless with Greg, no effort at all. I have not even thought about what I was going to say before I opened my mouth.
There you go. That's why I love radio. That's the beauty of radio. And that is it. Are you going to come back and do some more radio at some point?
If I'm invited, I'd like to, yeah. No, I do love it. I think it's great. I think it's a wonderful way of communicating. And I'm amazed the way it just keeps going from strength to strength. You know, with all these other, the internet and all that stuff, you know, you presume that young folk are thinking, why do I need the radio? But there's just something about it, you know, it's a great way of you know, obviously of hearing new music, but I don't know, it feels like you're part of something when you're listening to radio.
We're always here if you
You're
if
always
you need
here,
us.
and it's like the best kind of radio, you feel like you're listening to some friends, you know? And I know that, you know, I've said earlier, am I a friend of the show yet?
Second base. We're nearly there.
Okay.
Next time. I tell you what, we should speak to you at the end of your tour, when you're a broken man.
Do you know
On
what?
the 13th of December, when you finish in Cambridge, we'll get you in.
I honestly feel, I don't know if you're a fan of Elvis, but Elvis used to have this manager, Colonel Tom Parker, who just used to basically exploit Elvis mercilessly. And I feel a bit like that. Like the people who are organising this tour, we're doing 10 more dates, Steve. What? And if I don't die on the lavatory by the end of this tour, I'll be very surprised.
Do you think you're Elvis?
No, I wasn't comparing myself to his talent. I was comparing myself to him winding up as a bloated, broken man.
I wouldn't mind visiting your hometown. Was it Bristol? It's Bristol, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
We'll
Bristol,
do that when you die. There'll be a shrine to you in Bristol.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to come along to the dates in London as well.
Yeah, I'll give you half-price tickets, yeah.
Half-price, good. Thank you so much for popping in.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Have you got anything you want to talk to Ricky and Carl about tomorrow? Anything I should ask them?
Blimey. Well, just see if they're going to buy tickets for my show.
Has he not seen it yet, Ricky?
No, he's not. He's in his pyjamas by 6:30 in the evening.
Okay.
He'll probably wait for it to be on Dave.
Stephen, thank you so much for popping in.
Thanks for having me.
See you soon. Thank you.